Right, hi guys and welcome back to the Oversteer network, and of course the Japanese Grand Prix has just been completed. An interesting race, an exciting race in places as well, especially in the mid-pack. They were going at it for the best of the rest positions, and a couple of drivers carving the way through the field as well. So of course we're going to kick things off as always with the race winner and so on and so forth. So of course it was Lewis Hamilton that won the race, but he's disqualified. And so is his teammate Bottas that finished second. So an impressive drive by them, faultless weekend, but they're disqualified because of their antics last weekend. And this weekend proved that they didn't need to do that, but they did anyway. So it's a line through because they're still disqualified. That was nice and quick and easy, wasn't it? Next up in P3 was Max Verstappen. A good race by him. It was okay. He had a good race to start with, and then he had that silly error at the final chicane where he pushed Raikkonen wide after he missed the apex. He got a 5-second penalty for that, which personally I think was fair. It wasn't his actual fair play to him. He didn't want to cut the corner. I completely get that. But Raikkonen was there, and he really should have, just made it a bit more cautious on the return to the track, I would say. So that 5 seconds penalty I think was justified, although a bit harsh, because potentially he could have had second place today without that 5-second penalty, because he was right up the arse end of Bottas towards the end of that race. So yeah, Max Verstappen, a solid drive. He also had the incident with Vettel. What the friggin' hell was Vettel doing there? Jesus Christ. I thought we were getting the torpedo back next season, not this season. That was an interesting one by Vettel to do that. But Verstappen overall, a good race. It looked like his race was unravelling, especially when Ricciardo was really closing in on him by, I think it was about 2.5 seconds the closest it got down to. So everyone thought, oh God, could potentially be overtaken here by a driver that started further down the field. But in the end, a solid and good recovery by Verstappen. And for that reason, I'm going to score him 7 points. I think it was a decent race. The 5-second penalty was unfortunate, because he would have finished second without that, but I think it was a justified penalty, and I don't agree with penalties. Next up was Daniel Ricciardo, a storming drive through from starting 15th on the grid as a result of more engine troubles for Ricciardo. The only luck he's been having is bad lately. Look at all the 5s he's scored due to the DNFs and unfortunate unforeseen errors on Red Bull's part, but this weekend he's delivered. He's come through the field once again like he did at Russia. And yeah, a solid weekend, but like I said, carved his way through the field well, and then in the end, just unfortunate that he faded away. But that was due to tyres, so wasn't really anything he could do there. And yeah, to only finish a few seconds behind your teammate who ended up third, it was a good performance by him. So for that reason, I'm going to score Daniel Ricciardo. I'm going to score him 8 points again. I think that'd be fair enough. I would have liked to have seen him challenge Verstappen a bit more, but still an impressive drive. Can't fault that at all. Good drive. Next up we have, of course, Kimi Raikkonen finishing 5th. And Jesus Christ, what happened to Ferrari this weekend? They were absolutely horrendous. They just didn't get it together, did they? The balls qualifying up, the balls, the race up with the strategy of the tyres, and just absolutely gut-wrenching. Raikkonen, of course, suffered damage, a little bit of damage to his floor with Verstappen's collision, but that doesn't even warrant talking about, to be honest, because with or without the damage, they'd have still finished 5th and 6th this weekend. I really have no doubt about that, because they were horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. I think the team have thrown in the towel. This is the difference between Mercedes and Ferrari. Ferrari start off strong. As soon as they get a bit of pressure, they have a flap, and then they just fall down the back of the grid and make silly errors like they did in qualifying, and yeah, just not impressed by him. Raikkonen, though, he did the best he could with the strategy he was on. I'm going to be a bit forgiving on Raikkonen. I'm going to score him 7 points. I think he deserves a 7 as well. Could have been better. Could have been a lot better. Then we come to Sebastian Vettel, the torpedo himself. Yeah, what can be said about him, really? He qualified 9th as a result of Ferrari's shit strategy in qualifying, and also the fact that he fell off at the spoon. So, that was his own fault getting P9, really. It'd have been 4th, at least, if it had solidified that lap, but instead of he made a mistake, and that was that. So, and then in the race, fantastic first few laps. I think first 9 laps, he were fantastic. He carved his way up to 4th position. Verstappen had got his 5-second penalty already dished to him, so in the pit stops, Vettel just had to bide his time and he'd have got him. It'd have been stuck behind him, but the best he was ever going to get this weekend was third, and that was the best Ferrari was ever going to get. But instead, he tried to lunge it up the inside of him at spoon, like an absolute spoon, and he suffered the consequences of it. He spun all the way down to last place. Nothing more can be said of that. This is what we've seen from Vettel all season. Yeah, we can call Ferrari, and yeah, I am calling Ferrari because their strategies have been shit of late. But this is what we've seen with Vettel. Had he not made the stupid errors at Baku, had he not made the silly mistake at bloody Hockenheim when he were leading the race comfortably after being let through by Raikkonen, it's just stupid. It's just stupid. Utterly needless mistakes. And this was one of them. Yeah, he'd have lost out on 10 more points of the championship, and realistically the championship gone anyway. But at least get a good result and bring home a podium for all the fans that are there. Don't just send it up the inside like an absolute cabbage. But he did anyway. So for that reason, Sebastian Vettel is getting a big fat 0. Look at that. It's a chunky, meaty 0, that because I mean it. Next up we have Sergio Perez finishing 7th, best of the rest. A strong result by Force India this weekend. Perez, I think he was out qualified by Ocon, just, and then Ocon got a 3-place penalty for not obeying red flags in Q1. So, yeah, Perez, what can be said? A strong performance, strong race, both into Q3, the cars. And yeah, he did okay, and he did a good move on Grosjean after the safety car had ended, or sorry, the virtual safety car had ended, because Grosjean were like, whoa, how can he do that? Well, it's like, well, you got the delta to go to, and he pushed it to the limit, and he won. So, put your foot down, Grosjean. So yeah, a strong weekend by Perez, and nice to see Force India get a double points finish once again. So, Sergio Perez, I'm going to score him 9 points. I think that was a solid weekend by Perez. And considering it didn't look like they were the best of the B teams in free practice and through qualifying, especially with Leclerc's pace that he showed, and also both Haas cars, but to finish 7th I think was impressive. Next up we have Romain Grosjean finishing in P8. He's now scored more points this season than he has in any other Haas season. I think his best was about 29, he's on 32 now. So yeah, still a long way off his teammate Magnussen after his horrendous start to the season, but all in all, Grosjean did a good race, a good strategy really, but just faltered towards the end on older tyres. Nearly got pipped by Ocon, but managed to fend him off. And it's 4 more points on the board for Haas, and Renault only scored 1, so they're closing in on that gap for P4 as well. But they're going to need these double points finishes if they're going to really seriously overhaul Renault to the point where there's no catching up. Do you know what I mean? It needs to happen in the next 2 races, otherwise it's going to be a tall order just picking up these couple of points every race. So Grosjean, best of the Haasers. Magnussen didn't really turn up this weekend, it must be said. Yeah, so Grosjean, it was a strong race by Grosjean, but not his best, but still a good one. So for that reason, I'm going to score Romain Grosjean. He can have 8 points as well. It's not looking that cruel, is it, at the moment, apart from Vettel, but a lot of people did deliver some good races this weekend. Next up was Esteban Ocon. And what did Ocon do? Well, I think he qualified 8th, didn't he? And then he got 3 places to drop into 11th. So to finish 9th was decent and respectable. Shame he couldn't get past Grosjean to, just put a couple more points on the board. But for Esteban Ocon, a solid weekend, barring that penalty, which was potentially a bit harsh, but you've got to understand it at the end of the day. And yeah, Ocon, a solid weekend, but outshone in Perez in terms of race pace and overall positions. So I'm going to score him 7 points. 7 points for Ocon. Then we come to the last of the finishers, Carlos Sainz nicking the point off Pierre Gasly right at the end there, and disappointing a lot of Japanese fans up and down that grid and up and down the paddock as well. It must be said, all the fans and spectators were really rooting for Toro Rosso this weekend, having the Honda engines in the back of it. But yeah, it wasn't to be. Sainz nabbed the final point. And what can we say? Renault really are languishing down the order lately. They're struggling to keep up momentum. They've already admitted that they've fallen behind in the terms of the pace towards the end of this season. So to pick up the point was lucky, but like I said, for Haas to overhaul them, they've got to do something good. They've got to get the double points finishes, but Renault needs to get the double points finishes to keep them behind. So it's really going to be tight, that battle for 4th in the Constructors, and I can see it really swinging in Haas's favour. But Sainz did pick up a point, potentially the best he could have done this weekend, it has to be said really. But still not a brilliant race, so for that reason, It's a middle of the road 5 for Carlos Sainz. I know the car's not there, but yeah, it was lucky to pick up a point there, really was. As mentioned, Pierre Gasly missing out on the final points position by just 1 place and only a couple of laps from the finish as well, which is a shame to see. After Toro Rosso's strong performance this weekend, the race pace just wasn't there. And yeah, it was a shame to see him falter really and fall down the order to not pick up any points at all after qualifying 7th he did. And his teammate Hartley qualified 6th as well, so it is a shame. But that said, the race is the race, and Gasly did a lot better than his teammate, of course, and he did battle up there. And a lot of people were saying, oh, he should get points, but in the end, that Honda engine just wasn't strong enough. A good race by Gasly, though, a strong qualifying, so for that reason, I'm going to score him 7 points. He can have 7. I think it's a decent race, but just a shame to miss out on points at the end. And then we come to Marcus Ericsson. Yeah, 12th place was a decent finish by him on tyres that had done pretty much the entire race. They pitted when the first safety car came out after the collision with Leclerc and Magnussen, so throwing debris all over the track with Magnussen's rear puncture. And he then pitted for the medium tyres and stayed out on them all race long. They were absolutely shot by the end of the race. So they were hoping for potentially another safety car so they could get a free pit stop, but without that, they were never going to get the points. So to finish 12th and for Ericsson to be racing well was okay. He, of course, had the crash in Quali 1, which really hindered his chances, and he started stone dead last. And yeah, in the race, he did the best job he could on the oldest tyres. Sauber had to try something to get the points, especially when Toro Rosso were threatening that they were going to get points this weekend as well after that strong performance. So, Marcus Ericsson, an okay race. I'm going to score him 6 points. Yeah, I think it was decent recovery from him to finish 12th with those tyres that were so old. But the qualifying performance wasn't there and you shunted, and you should have easily got top 12 qualifying and points could have been possible then. Then we come to Brendan Hartley, the sister Toro Rosso, got off the line really badly after starting 6th. I think he was already down to about 10th by the first corner, so not a strong performance by Hartley in that sense. And then in the race, of course, we had the likes of Daniel Ricciardo coming through. So yeah, it was really a difficult race for Hartley to ever score points from there, to be honest, after the poor start. Did the best job he could, but in the end, finished behind Ericsson, who started ahead behind him, quite a way behind him, and of course finished behind Ricciardo as well, which sort of puts him where he is now, of course beaten by Gasly as well. So that explains the 13th position. A shame for Hartley, because I was really hoping it was a right boost of confidence after a strong performance, and I hope that keeps him in the seat, because I think he does deserve a second season. As I say with everyone deserves a second season. I think Hartley's one of those, but whether Toro Rosso will look elsewhere, I'm unsure. But he deserves a second season, that's all I'm going to say, and I'm going to score him 6 points for the weekend, because a strong qualifying, but the race just wasn't there, partly due to the car and also partly due to the bad mistake at the start, bogging down really. Next up, P14 and P15. We're going to do them together because it's the two McLarens, and what can we say about that? They were both out in Q1, 18th and 19th, only out qualifying Ericsson, who crashed. They were stone dead last, and then they were lucky really to finish ahead of the two Williams, because they're the only two cars they finished ahead of. Poor performance by McLaren, it really is. They are not doing any better. I think Lando Norris is looking at that car going, I don't want to be in it next year. Oh God, please make it better. But yeah, I think it's going to be a long road to recovery for McLaren from here on in, because they're not getting any better at all either. They started off with double points finishes this season and then just tumbled down the order to near enough last. Shocking, absolutely shocking. I'm going to score... I think I'm going to score them 4 points each. I just don't know what else I can do. People are going to say, yeah, but they had an impressive drive and they battled well and everything. Great, absolutely fantastic, but where did they finish? Nowhere near the chuffing points. I know it's not the driver's fault necessarily, but come on, for God's sake. Something's got to happen here, hasn't it? You know the car shit when Alonso can't do anything in it, but that's not even being me an Alonso fanboy. I think you could stick Hamilton in it and he'd still do crap. And I think you could stick Vettel in it and he'll still torpedo it, but he won't have anyone to torpedo it into, so he'll just fall off the grid of his own accord. But there you go. Then we come up to the last two finishers on the grid, which was the two Williams boys. Stroll did a brilliant race to actually get into Q2. Brilliant performance there. In the race, he suffered a 5-second penalty with a bit of a collision with Alonso, and then Alonso cut the corner. Even McLaren's had to resort to corner cutting now as well to get some points. So yeah, Stroll, poor performance really in the race, as did Sorokin. Sorokin outraced him though, to be fair, and finished ahead of him on merit, not just with that 5-second time penalty that Stroll picked up. Strong qualifying by Stroll though, but just didn't come together in the race. So yeah, I'm going to score Sorokin 6 points and Stroll 5 points, because I think that's fair enough. There's not much else I can do to that, to be honest. Then we come to the retirements. Charles Leclerc is one of them, and a weekend of what could have been for Sauber definitely shows here with Charles Leclerc. Looking absolutely mega in the practice sessions, getting 6th, 7th fastest, looking to be the fastest of the B teams. In qualifying, he had an unfortunate spin in Quali 2, which meant he couldn't improve on his lap, and he finished down in 11th it was. Started 10th, the result of Ocon's penalty. And then in the race, he had the contact with K-Mag, which I think K-Mag moved late. I've got to be honest, I did think K-Mag moved late, but I think it was right with what the stewards did with just calling it a racing incident, because at the end of the day, they both suffered from it. Leclerc could have backed out of it a little more. Fair enough, he jinked like that, and so did K-Mag, but he could have gone back that way, I feel. So 50-50 really, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and for Leclerc, he then had a failure in the Degners and ploughed through the gravel and parked up. So yeah, an unfortunate weekend for Leclerc. Points were certainly looking promising for the Sauber team, but just didn't deliver. So for Leclerc, it's going to be 5 points on the board. Then Nico Hülkenberg. A disastrous of a weekend for him, really. May as well have not bothered turning up for the second race this season, I think it was. But either way, it was a shit race by Hülkenberg. He crashed in free practice 3, leaving the car with heavily damaged. Renault did an amazing job to try and get him back out in for qualifying. They did. Then he was knocked out in Q1. Potentially the car wasn't quite right, which is more than understandable, really. But Hülkenberg should have got that car into Q2. And then in the race, he was struggling to ever get into the points and then just fell off. He just retired in the end with something breaking on the car, so unfortunate really. So Hülkenberg, I'm going to score him just 3 points. I think that was a bad race by Hülkenberg, compounded by the accident that he had in the end of free practice. A rush car to fix it, didn't qualify well, and that was that. And then K-Mag, yeah, really struggling again, isn't he, K-Mag? Back down to earth with a bang, so to speak, after scoring 8th at Russia. And this is what we mean about Haas consistency. It's just not there with both drivers. They're all up and down and all over the place, shaking it all about, it seems. And K-Mag, I'm going to score him the same as Leclerc, 5 points, because at the end of the day, it was a racing incident that ruined the pair of them's race. Right, so it's time for that. Oh, sorry, hang on a minute, my phone's ringing. Hello? Hi, Jolene, you all right, mate? What? Did you not see how off they were when you didn't turn up last time? Did you not see the hate-filled comments that you weren't there, that there wasn't Palmer of the Week, and you're telling me you can't make it now? It's ridiculous, Jolene. It's absolutely ridiculous, mate. You need to get your act together. This ain't good enough. This is your only way back into Formula 1, the cruel wall. You should know that. Well, who am I going to get now? Well, I suppose if he's available, then we're going to have to, aren't we? Yeah. All right, then. Well, I'll see you for next time, hopefully. All right. Bye, Jolien. Love you. Well, that was Jolien Palmer there saying that he was not available for Palmer of the Week, but he has brought a substitute with him. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to go and get him. So it's not Palmer of the Week, but it's going to have to do. I'm going to go get him now. Well, what do you think to that, guys? It was only Japan's finest, UJE Day. We've got him. We had him on the cruel wall. Oh, I'm absolutely amazed. He didn't even make it to Japan in Formula 1 in his real career of 2006. Wow, I'm a bit starstruck, to be honest. I mean, when Jolien said he was going to do it, but he's offered a good replacement there. And it's fitting for the Japanese fans that we have a Japanese driver scoring E-Day of the week to Sebastian Vettel, and who can fault him for that absolute shower of performance in every session possible this weekend. So yeah, there we go. And also, as you can see, I'm wearing a Marussia t-shirt as well this weekend. Of course, 4 years ago, Jules Bianchi had the tragic accident. So thoughts out to all Jules Bianchi's family. And of course, I'm sure he's racing up there with all the legends. And yeah, I'm sure he'd have been in that Ferrari seat by now, kicking Vettel's ass. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and much love.